I'm so glad that you could join me. Let's see if I can get this pulled up on Facebook here. So we have been talking about the goals. So we talked about goals. So this has been my goal reveal. I choose 10 goals from different domains, as Michael Hyatt calls them, of my life. So we've talked about a spiritual domain and an intellectual domain, and today we're going to talk about emotional domain and setting a goal for that. So the emotional domain, I mean, it's so important that we take care of our emotional well-being and we know what's best for us, and just make sure we meet those needs. And sometimes it's tricky. It's like, I don't know, there's certain things that are good for our emotional health and that we don't really think about, or it's just, I don't know, sometimes it took me a while to get to where I took the time to take care of my emotional needs and to, really be more mindful about what keeps me in a happy place. Several years ago, I discovered writing my gratitude journal. I've been a journal writer since high school or whatever, off and on. And consistently writing was good for me, but I did notice that it turned into kind of just a dumping ground when I was, just complain and kind of things I really couldn't say out loud, I would write in my journal. And not that, and there's still a purpose for that, but it was just really negative all the time. And then I discovered the gratitude journal. So I made it a point to start my journal writing off with 5 things that I was grateful for. And I was in such a bad place, or a negative place, when I started that it was really hard. And I had this thought of like, well, if I'm just going to write the same 5 things down every day, it kind of defeats the purpose. It doesn't do much, but some days it was, I'm breathing, I woke up this morning, and but it didn't take me very long to realize that I had become very negative. And when I look at all the bad parts of my life, and that's what I'm focusing on, is what isn't going right. It was hard to be grateful, and it was hard to be the person I really wanted to be. And it was kind of like a light bulb moment that I wasn't in a good place. But the benefit is I knew I was going to do it again tomorrow, and I didn't want to write the same lame thing. Not that they're lame, but just the same default answers. There wasn't a lot of thought to them. They were kind of just really basic survival. So I started, it made me more aware. So it's kind of like whatever you focus on is what you see, or what you're drawn to. It always reminds me of that exercise where I had I think it was in church class or something like that, where the instructor said, okay, I want you to look around the room and notice all of the green things in this room. And he gave us a minute, and he's like, okay, now close your eyes, and now I want you to remember all of the blue things that you saw in the room. Well, none of us were focusing on the blue things, so it was really hard to come up, to think of the blue things. And, sometimes some of us could go, oh, we were familiar enough with the room or whatever, done at my house, I'm familiar enough with my house that I could kind of do that. But in a new area, in that, unfamiliar spot, it's really challenging. So when I started focusing on the things I was grateful for, I started noticing them more, to the point where it was like something good would happen. It's like, oh, I need to remember to write that in my gratitude journal. And so it really started a spiral of, of being more grateful and more grateful and more thoughtful about the gifts. I mean, some days I don't know, it's kind of weird, I guess, but I love the way that the branches or the leaves of a tree play against the blue sky, and to me that's very calming and relaxing, and sometimes that is something that makes it to my gratitude journal just because it gives me that peace. For whatever reason, it just kind of takes me to a happy place. It makes me feel serene, and that's something that brings me joy. So sometimes that's in my gratitude journal, and I'm much more mindful of the kindnesses that other people show me, of whether it's something small, like, you know, especially when I had I have twins, and when they were in the stroller and trying to get through a store, like in the doors, you know, it was really hard to hold the door open and drag this train of a stroller into it. And so when somebody was thoughtful enough to hold the door open for me, or, you know, little things like that, or just even a genuine compliment or a smile or just some kind of connection that made me feel seen, those were so meaningful to me. So those are the types of things that help my emotional health. I also learned when I got cranky that I needed to get outside, especially if I could take my camera with me, and just getting out for an hour, you know, even to a nearby park that I've been to a dozen times before, just still being outside. And something about, for me, looking through my camera, it helps me to focus on those little details, and that brings me joy. That grounds me to my, you know, my core, and makes me, you know, just makes me feel more connected with myself, and just definitely a more emotionally stable person. So, you know, I've gotten to where I've noticed these things that are helpful to my emotional well-being. I'm to the point where, you know, writing my gratitude journal isn't much of a goal for me because it is such a part of my life. I'm pretty good about getting outside, and, you know, and it's not something, I mean, I'd love to do it more, but it's not, you know, it's still something that I do regularly enough. But even that, you know, do it once a week or something like that would be a great goal. But the goal that I chose is the affirmations. And I pulled up a little list here, so I should bring that up just so I don't forget. You know, I have realized how I talk to myself, and even I know there was a point in my life where I talked to myself and it wasn't the most kind way, or, you know, and I've gotten better about that, but still my confidence sometimes is not where I want it to be. So, you know, I kind of question, or, I mean, just little things that, like, oh, wait, that person, they like me? What? You know, I seem so surprised. So it's more building, you know, for my confidence and that part of my emotional health, just to not, just to be even more mindful, and to go from maybe leaving that negative self-talk to kind of a neutral self-talk, to making it a positive self-talk that I tell myself, or that conversation in my head can be much more encouraging. So that is how my goal for my emotional well-being came to be. So I really love the whole affirmation, and, you know, reading and saying no quotes, and so that was my goal. I have a calendar in my room that I kind of keep track of stuff. So I just wrote out a little quote. I taped it on there. The goal is to make sure I read that at least once a day, preferably say it out loud, and then change it up when, you know, as occasionally. I haven't really said, oh, I'm going to change it every 3 weeks or what, but, you know, probably at least once a month I'll change that out. But that kind of that cheerleading to myself is my daily affirmation, and that is my goal. So this, right now, the affirmation I have on my calendar is that you don't have to be perfect to be amazing. I know, I think I thought before that I was a perfectionist, but then when I had twins, they broke me of that. But I think it just kind of got pushed aside, and now, I still see those tendencies, and I see those times when I don't do anything because I don't think I can do it perfectly, and that's ridiculous. We can't learn to do anything if we expect to be perfect right off. What's the point of learning? So just becoming more self-aware. This is something I've learned about myself. So the whole I don't have to be perfect to be amazing is something that's really good to remind myself that doing something is better than waiting till I'm perfect at it, because you're only going to get good at the thing by doing the thing. One of the coaches, there's a business coach that says that, Stacy Serino. So she, and that's so true. And it's been such a good practice for me. It's like, okay, well, if I want to get good at this, I need to do it. I can't. Nobody's perfect at everything right out of the box without trying and learning and growing. And if we were all perfect at it, there would be no growing, and that's where the fun is. So that is where I'm at with my emotional goal. That is my mantra that I've got on my calendar. I would love to hear what your emotional goal is, if you're willing to share. I know sometimes they're very private, but even some things that you've learned by setting emotional goals. If you have a favorite mantra, please share that. I can add it to my collection to post up on my calendar. Let's see. Oh, and I also had this thought yesterday is, this one is one I do want to do for the year, but it doesn't have to be. Like, if your goal is just to, to do it for 60 days or 90 days or, 120 days or a month or a quarter or whatever your goal is, even if it's a habit goal, I always kind of think, oh, these are my goals for 2020, so they have to be goals that last the whole year long. And sometimes I don't, and maybe that's not necessary. Maybe this is something you want to, do. Maybe your goals are just something that I want to do this for 90 days and see how it feels. I want to, and just see what improvement it makes or doesn't make, or what difference it makes. And then at that point, maybe I've got a rough time. I know this time of year is hard for me, so this is my goal to make it better. This is my goal. I know I look at the same way with my achievement goals. I'm like, oh, obviously I have all year to do this thing. So I always kind of shied away from something that's like, well, I want to do this one thing in June. Well, that's not a yearly goal, but it is. And that was the other thing that Michael Hyatt talks about in his book, Your Best Year Ever, is there's two types of goals. There's a habit goal. So like my daily affirmation is something I want to do every day. It's a habit I want to build. And then there's a achievement goal. So like we talked about yesterday, I want to read 12 books. Well, yeah, I want to read 12 books in a year, but it could be I do want to go on that trip in June, and that's my achievement goal, and that's cool. It doesn't have to be I want to do it by December 31st, or it can be whatever we set. This is just a really good time of the year to look at our blank slate of 2020 and decide how we want to fill it and how we want to live. So there's so much to setting goals. I don't know, it's not like a huge rocket science thing, but some of these things kind of help us be more focused, and others help us to not be the perfectionist, and help us to use these tools to best serve us. They're not, we choose the parameters and we choose how to make them work for us. We're not working for them. So it's just nice to, I think sometimes we get set, and this is what the goals are, and this is how they work, and there is no deviating from them. No, there are goals. They're there to serve us. So we choose what they do for us or with us. So that is everything. So that I had on my thoughts for today. Again, please like the post, like the page. Love to have you head over to the Etsy shop for Picturesque Views. There's a selection of mindful, inspirational photography with quotes to help you to kind of have your own touchstone to remind you and to inspire you and motivate you to live that life that you deserve, and that live your potential and be happy to your core. And so that is the purpose of Picturesque Muse, is to help us all to live intentionally and to find that joy that in our own unique way. So yeah, like the page, like the post, come check me out at Picturesque Muse. Share your favorite mantras or your goals that you're working on. Again, appreciate your continued support and encouragement, and I will be back tomorrow to talk about the next one of my goals. And until then, I hope you take care of you. Bye.